Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another live stream. And England have made it to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. 3-0 winners against Senegal to set up a mouth-watering tie against the French and Kylian Mbappe in the last 8 next weekend. And a 3-0 win against Senegal, truth be told, the scoreline made it sound easier than it was. The first sort of 35, 40 minutes from England were really poor, very sloppy at the back, giving the ball away. Centre-halves couldn't pick a ball into midfield at all. Giving the ball away in dangerous areas. Pickford having to make a couple of good saves to keep Senegal out. But as soon as that first goal went in, then there was no looking back, and England played some really nice stuff. And there's plenty to look forward to, plenty to be positive about as well as we head towards, as I said, that mouth-watering tie against the French. Goals from, obviously, Jordan Henderson, surprisingly, I have to say. Harry Kane getting off the mark, and Bukayo Saka adding his third goal of the tournament as well. So all in all, a very positive night for England. Guys, thanks for tuning in. As always, please make sure you smash the likes on the stream, subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already, and get your thoughts and your questions in the chat, and I can get into them, okay? But yeah, I was pleased with how England did tonight. First thing that we need to get into, though, is Raheem Sterling. Announced that obviously he was unavailable for selection due to a family matter. It has subsequently transpired that his his home in the UK was broken into. Armed attackers broke into the house of Raheem Sterling in London, stole valuables. His relatives were said to be inside the home and shaken up. A major investigation is underway. It has left Sterling and his family feeling shaken, and understandably so. So that is the reason that Raheem Sterling was obviously absent, unavailable from the England squad tonight. He's been dealing with that. He's been trying to sort it out. Gareth Southgate was asked before the game whether Sterling would be leaving the squad at all if England progressed further. England have progressed further. There's no updates on that yet, but obviously all the best to Sterling. Obviously a very, very not very nasty situation for him to find himself and his family members in the home with armed robbers breaking in. So yeah, hopefully everything's all right with him and he can rejoin up with the squad for the quarterfinal next weekend. But whatever decision he makes, then obviously wishing him all the best and back whatever he decides to do. But that is the reason that Raheem Sterling was unavailable from the squad tonight. I mean, in terms of the lineup then and getting into it, I think Raheem Sterling being absent kind of made it a bit easier for Gareth Southgate. He didn't have that decision. Oh, is he going to pick Sterling? Is he going to drop him? Retained Phil Foden in the lineup, which I thought was definitely the right thing to do. England's most creative player, England's most talented player, and particularly against a Senegal team that's physical, is going to defend deep, it's going to be hard to break down. You need someone with the keys to unlock the door, and Phil Foden has certainly got those keys to do so, and he chipped in tonight with a fantastic performance, which I'll delve into in a bit more detail. Kyle Walker as well, keeping his place. I think, you could maybe say it's a bit harsh on Trippier, but ultimately, Kyle Walker is a superior defender. He's the more experienced England player, and he's the guy that you can perhaps count on more in the big moments. And unless England switch to a back five against France, then I definitely wouldn't expect I wouldn't expect Kieran Trippier to feature again in this tournament from the start. Maybe from the bench, but I don't expect to see Trippier in the starting lineup anymore. And I certainly don't expect to see him in that lineup against France, as I said, unless it goes to a back five. And I think Marcus Rashford can feel himself a little bit hard done by not to be starting as well. But then I can fully understand why. You're definitely going to play Phil Foden. I think Southgate likes the Rashford option from the bench in terms of pace, bringing something on, to mix the game up. I think that's going to be really important as we head towards these latter stages of the World Cup, is impact from the bench, having weapons to use off the bench. And Rashford's pace against tiring defences could be a real big weapon for England to have as we head deeper into these knockout rounds. So whilst I personally feel that he should have started, I think he can feel quite hard done by not to be starting. I don't think you can really argue with the starting lineup at all. Jordan Henderson, again, was another one where I can see why he went with it. And ultimately, it actually worked out very well in the end, Henderson getting the first goal. But I think that it's one of those where, you can see why he's in perhaps not the most talented or the most technically gifted footballer, but he's got experience. He puts in the shift. He works hard. And you can see what he does offer to this team. I probably expect Henderson to keep his place for the weekend as well. I thought he did actually play really well. And I'm happy to hold my hands up as one of those people that wasn't best pleased to see his name on the starting team sheet. But I can understand why he's in there, and I can see what he brings. And I think he does also allow Jude Bellingham to thrive a bit more. I think when Henderson's in alongside Bellingham, Bellingham seems to get on the ball a lot more. He seems to have a lot more license to get forward than when he perhaps plays there alongside a Mason Mount and whatnot. So yeah, I think the balance definitely suits Jude more in there with having Henderson alongside him rather than, say, having someone like a Mount alongside. I'm not saying that Bellingham can't perform well with Mount next to him, of course not, but it seems to be the trend in this tournament that, you know, when Henderson has played, Bellingham seems to have done much better, certainly in the last two games against Wales and obviously Senegal tonight. But yeah, to be the only thing I'm concerned about, and I'll get this concern out the way first, is England's slow start to games. Obviously against Iran, it wasn't particularly slow. You know, you got the first half goals, put 6 past them, but in all the subsequent games, you know, obviously the US, Wales, and now tonight's game as well, England have started really, really slowly in games. Been second best in the first half for the majority of games tonight. Second best for the first 35 minutes. Really poor tonight. Really poor. Sloppy in possession, giving the ball away in dangerous areas. As I said, centre halves struggling to pick a pass into midfield to save their lives. And as we get deeper into the tournament and the quality of opposition goes up, because respectfully, England haven't really been tested in this World Cup yet. I was expecting Senegal to be better than they were. I think first 35 minutes they were good, but I don't know how much of it was down to them being good and how much of it was down to England being really sloppy. I suspect probably 60-40 in England being sloppy, but you know, you can only play what's in front of you. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this England side copes with a test. And they're certainly going to get that on Saturday when they take on the French. But I just, that's the only concern for me about England in this tournament at the moment, is how slow we've started games. And against better sides, if you give up chances like England did tonight with sloppy, giving the ball away in dangerous areas, Kylian Mbappe and co are gonna punish you, and you could find yourself a goal or two down and almost out the game. So England have really got to get stuck into games from the off, start much faster, start in the ascendancy, because you know we grow into games and we do play better in the second half, but against better opposition, it could be too late by the time the second half comes around. So for me, England have got to start games quicker. They've got to do better in that regard and cut out the sloppy mistakes in terms of giving the ball away in dangerous areas and conceding chances, because Senegal, you know, on another night could have been a goal or two up and it's a totally different game. But, you know, it didn't work out that way. And the opening goal, you know, comes very much against the run of play. Pickford having to make one very good save. And it's a really nice move. I mean, Jordan Henderson gets the goal, but Phil Foden's involved, Harry Kane's involved. Comes to Jude Bellingham. This cutback is superb. Like, I know it looks very simple, but it's a very skillful cutback. And Jordan Henderson making that run forward from midfield puts the ball into the back of the net, finishes off a sweeping move. And I don't know if it's just me. I feel Mendy should do a little bit better in goal with that one. It's not exactly a million miles away from him. I feel he could perhaps, I'm not saying he should keep it out, but I feel he can at least get a hand to it. I perhaps feel he should have done better there. But once it's 1-0, it's kind of like the floodgates open. The game opens up big time. Senegal have to come out a little bit more. And I think that second goal right on the stroke of half-time from Harry Kane was the hammer blow to Senegal that kind of sent them out of the game. It's another really good sweeping move. Kane looking for his first goal still. He's got a lot to do, though. He receives the ball in acres of space from Foden. And you know, it's a great finish past Mendy. You know, it's near Mendy, but it's powerful. It's straight down the middle, and Harry Kane obviously off the mark for the tournament. And going in 2 goals up at halftime totally changes the complexity of the game and makes it makes it a far more straightforward scenario for the Three Lions. And truth be told, after Senegal really, other than the chances that England sort of gifted them in the first half, didn't really offer anything. They didn't create anything. Yes, they missed Sadio Mane. Yes, Idrissa Gueye would have been helpful for them in the midfield. But ultimately, the golfing class told that the gap in quality was evident in terms of the team, in terms of personnel, and England rightfully marched on. And Bukayo Saka getting England's third and his third of the tournament with a lovely dinked finish from a cutback, and he thoroughly deserved that. And England obviously giving rest to Foden, giving rest to Saka by bringing them off with about 25 minutes to go. So all in all, I think a good night for England. But I hope Gareth Southgate shares the same concerns as me. Just got to make sure we start games quicker and start games in a better fashion than we have done this tournament so far. Hopefully that does come into effect. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on the game as well, because I thought for England it was pretty convincing, pretty straightforward. Other than those first 35 minutes, the goals were worked really well, great flowing team moves, good quality finishes, and it's exactly what you need to do. I don't think England were particularly wasteful tonight at all in terms of creating opportunities. I felt that the opportunities they had, they took them and finished them off really well. And Harry Kane has actually subsequently been named the Premier League man of the match. Not the Premier League man of the match, sorry. The World Cup man of the match is Harry Kane. So I'll take that poll down in the stream. I mean, I perhaps feel that maybe Foden or Bellingham should have been man of the match, but it is what it is. I will end that poll now because Harry Kane has been named as the man of the match. But let's get into a couple of bits then on Harry Kane himself. Actually, do you know what? I'll just get Harry Kane himself. First goal of the tournament, but to suggest that he's not had a good tournament because he's only scored once is showing kind of a fundamental misunderstanding of football. I mean, I think he's had a really good tournament, chipping in with assists and showing how valuable he is to the team. And Kane has now scored 11 goals at major tournaments for England, 7 World Cup, 4 Euros, and he's overtaken Gary Lineker as the Three Lions all-time top scorer in major competition. So a moment of history for Harry Kane tonight. Plus, he is now only 1 goal behind Wayne Rooney's all-time England goal-scoring record. I mean, and there'd be no better occasion to break it, to level the record, than against France in that quarter-final match next weekend. But yeah, Kane, great for him to get off the mark, good for his confidence, as well as he's been playing in this tournament. As a centre-forward, you want to get amongst the goals as a captain, you want to lead from the front, and he's off the mark now, and hopefully the floodgates could open as from Harry Kane's perspective. But a nice moment for him tonight to get a goal. The only thing that I would say is I don't know if I'm surprised or it's slightly nitpicking, but personally, if I was Gareth Southgate, I would have taken Kane off with about 20 minutes to go. I just think it's unnecessary risk just to leave him on for the full 90. I know there's plenty of time between games, but you just don't want to risk an injury or anything like that. I personally would have subbed him off and given him some rest and just made sure that he was going to be 100% for the France game at the weekend. I mean, ultimately, it didn't really matter in the end, but just from a personal preference, I think it would have made sense to give Kane a bit of a rest. But I just wanted to move on to a couple of guys, and I'll discuss them in a bit more detail in the player ratings with how good Mr. Phil Foden was tonight. I've been calling for Phil Foden to start games for England on a regular basis. He's far too good to not be a mainstay in this England side. Obviously, didn't start against Iran, completely unused against Wales. Completely unused against the US, and then obviously he started the game against Wales where he scored. And tonight I thought he was absolutely sensational again. I mean, his stats up on the screen here: 100% dribbles completed, 81% pass accuracy, 40 touches, 25. I think that's 3 key passes, 2 big chances created, and 2 assists. So Foden offering, to England exactly what we need, and particularly against top-level opposition, against teams that are also going to sit deep. You need someone that can make something happen out of nothing, someone that's really good with the ball in tight spaces, someone that can pick a pass out of nowhere. And no one does that better than Phil Foden. Phil Foden is a phenomenal talent. I think the best player we've got, probably Foden and Bellingham are England's 2 most talented players without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, Kane is fantastic, but in terms of Foden and Bellingham, these are England's 2 best players, ability-wise, talent-wise, by an absolute mile, in my opinion. And Foden, again, showing why he should be starting. And I don't think now for the rest of the tournament, Foden's position in the team should even be questioned. Absolutely fantastic tonight. Really, really good. I'm going to get into the lineups, guys. I'm going to get into the player rating. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below on these player ratings, and whether you agree or disagree with them. Another clean sheet for England, which again I think is a real big positive. Southgate wasn't happy after the first game against Iran with the sloppy defending at the end and England conceding 2 goals. And ever since then, England have really tied it up at the back really well, built on a Stones and Maguire partnership at centre half. And they've not conceded a goal yet. 2 goals in 4 games is really good going. yes, you can argue the quality of opposition's not been the best, but you still got to not make mistakes yourself. You still got to keep the opposition out. So I think from an England perspective, to have only conceded 2 goals in the whole tournament is a real big positive. And England don't particularly look like conceding goals. The only way they look like conceding at the moment is by making mistakes, is basically from their own doing. So I think that's a real positive for England, is how defensively solid we look. And we've seen it before. England were really resolute at the Euros as well, didn't concede many goals en route to the final there either. So yeah, real good defensive stability there from England. It's really pleasing to see. As I said, guys, put your player ratings in the chat as well. Would really appreciate it. You getting involved. Let me know your thoughts on these player ratings. But yeah, let's get straight into it then. Jordan Pickford in goal. To be perfectly honest, he didn't really have a lot to do. Did Pickford? He made one really good save from the from that Senegal chance. It's hit into the ground and he saves it, gets a strong palm to it. Other than that, there wasn't really too much for him to do. He commands his box, well, his distribution's good as well. He was reliable when called upon. So I think a pretty solid performance all round for Pickford. So I'd give Pickford a 7. I think it was a good performance from him. And I would be, if I was Pickford, I'd be pretty pleased with that. And I think Pickford's had a really good tournament so far as well. I don't think he's done an awful lot wrong at all. If we're being perfectly honest, let's move on to the centre halves now. John Stones obviously getting a bit of a rest as well, with Eric Dyer coming on towards the end. I thought Stones was better than Maguire tonight. I felt Stones defended really well. Him and Maguire both struggled though, in terms of particularly in that opening 35 minutes where they just couldn't find a pass into midfield at all. They were giving the ball away. Distribution was poor from the back. But after that, they looked comfortable. They remain a threat from set pieces. And it was a good performances all round from those guys. So I mean, for me, I think Stones again solid. I'd give him a 7 as well, and I'd give Maguire probably a 6.5. I just think he was slightly worse than Stones. I think he gave the ball away slightly more often. I just don't think he looked quite as assured as Stones did. But this partnership of Stones and Maguire looks really good and looks to be one of the best centre-back pairings at the World Cup at the moment. If we're being honest, was pretty pleased with it. And then we've got obviously moving on to fullbacks. I felt Kyle Walker had a good game. There was one time where Ismail Assar got the better of him. But other than that, I think Walker was pretty solid as well, showing why he should be in the team. His recovery pace is good. He defends well. He gets forward well. Kind of just ticks all the boxes, really. So for me, I'll probably go with a 7 for Kyle Walker as well. I thought he was impressive again. Let's move on to the other side. Luke Shaw, who's obviously made that England left back slot his own. So for me, I think Shaw was decent. I felt he got forward well. There was one opportunity in the first half where he thought he was kind of in on goal, but just a bit of a heavy touch took him a little bit too far wide, and Mendy sent it out for a corner. But ultimately, I think Luke Shaw had a good game. And I don't know. I'd give him a 6.5 along with Maguire, and then Stones and Walker on the 7s there. Let's move into midfield now then. The start of Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice for me had a good game. I think he had a really good game. He breaks up the play well, he gets forward well. It's the sort of things like when you don't really notice him on the pitch, when a defensive midfielder is having a good game, because you don't really notice them. The work that they do goes unnoticed. And I felt for me, Rice had a really good game today. I was really, really impressed with him. And I think Chelsea would need to get a move on and get this deal tied up as quickly as possible of Declan Rice to arrive next summer, because he'll be a massive, massive plus to whatever team that he ends up at. And he's you can see what he offers to a lot of teams. And you can see what he offers to this England side, and a really top player. So for me, I'm going to go with a Declan Rice. I'm going to go with a 7.5. Moving on to Jordan Henderson. Henderson surprised me today. An experienced head in there. He's got good work rate. His passing is good. He keeps it simple, and he got forward really well for the goal. And I thought he played really well. I thought we played really well. The finish was good as well. Great burst forward from midfield to get Bellingham's cut back, and it's the two kind of central midfield players combining for the goal, which was really pleasing to see. And I think for Henderson, he's got an important role to play in this England setup. So yeah, I think for me, Henderson had a good game. I'd probably give Henderson an 8. I think it's kind of his impact on the England team is underrated, and I'm more than happy to accept that I was kind of wrong thinking that he shouldn't really be anywhere near this England starting lineup. I think for the last 2 games, he's shown that he offers something a little bit different to this England side, and it was positive for him. So I'm pleased with Henderson. I think it was a good performance from him there. Moving on to Jude Bellingham, and this guy, Jude Bellingham, is a special player, special footballer. I mean, this guy is so good. Another assist for him. He scored in the opening game against Iran. He just makes the game look so easy. And as I said earlier, playing alongside Henderson seems to bring the best out of Bellingham. He seems to get on the ball a lot more. He seems to be a lot more influential, and he seems to kind of have that sort of midfield role a bit more defined. He sort of knows exactly what he's doing when he's obviously playing alongside Henderson. He kind of defies his age. 19 still. I can't believe he's still only 19. For someone that young, he's so good, and there's so much further for Bellingham to go still. And I do think he's going to be one of England's most important players going forward for the rest of this tournament. But he just makes the game look easy, so effortless on the ball. He gets forward well. He's just a box-to-box midfielder. He scores goals. He just ticks all the boxes for the perfect modern-day midfielder, and he's going to be a special player in years to come. And I think Birmingham City were well ahead of the curve when they retired that number 22 shirt, because they knew what a special player they had in their hands, and we saw it tonight, and we're starting to see it. More and more evidence of it. Bellingham is going to be a top player. He's going to be the most sought after player in the transfer window this summer. It's going to take about £130 million to get him. Please, Todd Boehly, do what you can, do everything you can to try and get him to come to Chelsea, because if we can get Bellingham, that's a midfield position sorted for the next 10 years. I mean, I thought he was superb tonight. I'm going to give him an 8.5. Bellingham was fantastic. Moving on to Bukayo Saka then. Recalled to the lineup after being rested against Wales, and people think that perhaps Rashford should have started instead of him, and I personally would have probably started Rashford from the off, but been proven wrong, and I'm happy to accept that. Saka had a good game today. He was a constant threat down that right hand side. He gets in dangerous areas. He's really good with the ball at his feet. He's direct. He takes people on. And the finish for the goal is really good. Make no mistake about it. That is not an easy finish. The ball's coming at him at pace. Yes, the marking's not particularly good, but that dinked finish over Mendy is really promising, and it's good from Saka. And that's now 3 goals in the World Cup for Saka, same amount as Rashford. So Saka and Rashford are England's top scorers in this World Cup. And Saka looks really at home in an England shirt. He looks really at home on the international stage, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he progresses, how he does against France. That's going to be another step up. He'll probably be up against Teo Hernandez. That's going to be much more tricky than obviously it was tonight. But yeah, I think Saka's got a bright future. And he's in really good form for England. It's really pleasing to see, because he's a top player. Took a lot of abuse, and terribly and wrongfully so, for obviously missing a penalty in that Euros final. But since then, he's really cracked on. He's playing really well for Arsenal, and he's locked down that right-hand side in the England team at the moment. I felt Saka had a good game tonight. I'm going to give him a 7.5 as well. Good performance from Saka. And now let's move on to the star man, Phil Foden. For me, my man of the match, demonstrating exactly why he's in the team and what he offers. This guy's so good. I don't think people really appreciate how good Phil Foden is. So young, for someone so young to be so talented, to have so much experience at the top level. 2 assists tonight. Everything about his game was perfect. The way that he just picks the ball up, how good he is in tight spaces, his passing, his ability to see a pass, his ability to create. Everything about Foden tonight was fantastic, and he fully deserves to be a mainstay in this England lineup, and England should be building that front line around Phil Foden. It's as simple as that. Foden should be one of the first name, if not the first name, on the England team sheet, because he's just someone that can create out of nothing, someone that's got so much ability and so much composure on the ball. Knows exactly what he's doing. He's very, very good at what he does, and he adds a lot to this England side that when he doesn't play, you can certainly see what's missing from it. And yeah, I was really delighted with how Phil Foden did tonight. Really special player. I think for me, I'm going to give him a 9. I felt he was that good tonight. I felt he was England's best player tonight. A bit of a toss-up between him and Bellingham. I know Kane got given the man of the match, but I think Foden and Bellingham were the two standout performers for England. So I'm giving Phil Foden the 9. Let's move on to Harry Kane now to round out these ratings. Kane, I felt Kane had a good game. Got off the mark, well taken goal, trademark Kane finish, great power, great accuracy, smashing it into the back of the net, and really good for him to get off the mark. I think he's had a really good tournament anyway, if the goals don't suggest so. But for him to get off the mark will be a big confidence boost, and hopefully now, the goals will start to come a bit more freely, and it'll be great if he could obviously equal Wayne Rooney's goal scoring record against France on Saturday. But Kane's just general all-round play as well, The fact when he drops deep, he gets the ball. He's really good on the ball as well. He's very creative as well. For a centre forward, he chips in with a lot of assists as well. There's more to his game than just goals. And I think for this England side, yes, he's there to score the goals, but he's also there to kind of link the play as well. He can be that link player when he comes deep to obviously get the ball in and around that midfield area. He still offers a lot to this team. So yeah, Harry Kane for me was very good tonight, and he's going to be really important to how England do going forwards for the remainder of this tournament. Hopefully, it's going to be longer than just next weekend, but he's going to be really important to the side, and it's really important that we still play to his strengths and whatnot, get him involved in the game as much as we can, and create those chances for him, because he will ultimately stick the ball in the back of the net. But I'm going to give Harry Kane an 8 tonight. 8 for Kane. I felt he was really good. But yeah, that pretty much rounds out the player ratings, guys. Please do let me know if you agree or disagree with those. And yeah, not really too much more to add on that game, if we're being honest. It was a fairly routine scenario for England. As I said, first 35 minutes wasn't great, and that's one thing that definitely needs to improve. Is England's how they start their start to games, because against France, if we start like that and the sloppy and give up chances, then we will find ourselves goal down. It'll be very tricky to get ourselves back into the game. But loads of positive for England, and I know, Megos, big up. Remember, guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I would really appreciate it. So please do hit that subscribe button. If you're tuning in now, I'll be very grateful. Yeah, I think France is going to be tricky. Obviously, we'll be back with a more in-depth preview for that game next weekend. But just in general, England have got to fix up in terms of how slowly they've been starting games, because as I said, against a better quality of opposition, England will find themselves in trouble. With the likes of Mbappe, Griezmann, Giroud, Dembele. These guys will punish you if you're sloppy and if you make mistakes in dangerous areas, like England did tonight. So I don't think it's not necessarily like a worrying trend, but for me, it is a concern how every game, bar the opening game, England have started really slowly and been second best in the first half of every game, and you can't keep getting away with that. So that would be my one sort of concern. But ultimately, I think it's been a really positive World Cup for England so far. Momentum's building. Spirits around the camp seem really good. And there's a belief that, England can do this, or can at least get to a semi-final, or can at least make the final, perhaps. And I'm starting to believe a little bit more. I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm fully aware that, there are better sides than England in this tournament, but I think this World Cup is very open, and England can certainly get to the latter stages. They've got the players to do it. They've got a manager in Gareth Southgate who, in tournament football, is very good. Knows what he's doing. Always seems to get the results. Despite what people think of as a manager. And I've been critical of him. I'm not his biggest fan, but in terms of tournament football, he knows what to do. He knows how to get it done, and he is getting it done. But yeah, I think for England, there's definitely reasons to be optimistic. Really positive performance tonight. Forgetting the first 35 minutes, once the first goal went in, once England got the breakthrough, then it was It was much, much better from them. Very clinical, professional performance. And we move on to the last 8. Just very briefly, from a Chelsea perspective, I thought Edouard Mendy had a poor game tonight. And the decline from him is mad. I don't know if he's just an average goalkeeper who massively outperformed himself when he obviously was instrumental in that run to the Champions League that night in Porto. Obviously did very well for Senegal in the African Cup of Nations and stuff, but his level has dipped so much, and I'm just not sure if that's because he wasn't ever that great in the first place, or because this is his level and he was just massively outperforming himself. Because right now it doesn't look like anything anywhere near a Chelsea number 1 whatsoever, and I don't know how we kind of rebuild his confidence, how we get his form back. But at the moment, I think it's a poor World Cup overall. Yes, in some games he was all right, but poor tonight. He was poor against Holland in the opening game. He was at fault for both goals. And it is a concern. It's not nice to see a player like him struggling so much when we have seen what he can do. So hopefully Mendy can, obviously get back to Cobham, have a bit of a break, do some work on the training ground, and try and get that confidence back. But right now, he's nowhere near the Chelsea number 1 keeper at all. And it's as simple as that. I felt Koulibaly had a decent-ish game tonight. I felt some of his passing was poor. Obviously picked up a booking. It's hard for him, you're playing in a team that hasn't got, respectfully, isn't the best in quality. He tried his best. It wasn't vintage Koulibaly performance, but I think people saying he was poor. It's an easy target. It's just to scapegoat him. I didn't actually think he was that bad tonight. Yes, he's played better, but he's certainly probably played a lot worse as well. So, it's another 2 Chelsea players on the plane home, and obviously Koulibaly and Mendy joined Pulisic and Havertz. So we are getting a few more players back at Chelsea, back at the training ground before the guys obviously fly out to Abu Dhabi on Sunday for kind of a week's warm weather training, which culminates in a friendly against Aston Villa in Abu Dhabi next weekend. So, yeah, from a Chelsea perspective, we're getting players back now. And as the World Cup heads towards the latter stages, you do have to start to think about the club football. It's great that we've got players back. Obviously, from their perspective, they'll be disappointed to be out of the World Cup, of course. But from a Chelsea perspective, we'll be delighted to get players back in the building, back in the training ground, and back working with the team again. But yeah, guys, I haven't got too much more to add. If anyone's got any questions or anything, bang them in the chat. But probably going to round this one out here. England through to the last 8 of the World Cup. A massive game against France awaits next weekend. Cannot wait for that one. I'll be back with some Chelsea videos in the week. Got a little bit of a transfer update video to drop as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. There will also be 5 things we learned video dropping tomorrow. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you smash the likes on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you again soon.